My name is Melissa Hurley, work for a company here in the Pacific Northwest called Cascade Geosynthetics. We are a relatively new company, having opened the doors in just July of 2020. We are a new company, but we are not new to the field of geosynthetics and to stormwater solutions. We're a team of experienced industry veterans. I'm betraying myself a little bit by telling you that I've been in this field for 26 years. So I won't tell you my age, but it's up there. We are a stocking warehouse here in Portland, Oregon. So we really see our role as the distributor, as being the ears and eyes in the geosynthetic industry. And we're really out there looking for the best product ideas and innovations and solutions, and holding those products in our local warehouse, and also being a liaison to the contractors. So we're going to be the guys that after you've uh, discovered these great solutions in Stratavault and Flex MSE and specifying your project, you can count on one of us being out on the job site, making sure that the contractors have the support they need to properly install these solutions. That's really important to us. So today's offering, I'm personally very excited about this lineup we've got. My personal passion in this industry is really around sustainability and equity. And both of these product offerings really promote solutions for beautiful, healthy urban environments. And even better than that, our speakers today are both international men of mystery. Somehow we managed to have two speakers from British Columbia, and Bill will cover their bios, but I'm personally very stoked because these are good products and good companies and good people. So with that, Bill, I shall turn it back to you.
Well, Melissa, I owe you two apologies. One, I just realized our marketing department created this Zoom webinar and did not enable cameras, video cameras. I hadn't checked that until just now. And the second apology is to check that I had to take controls back away from you. So sorry about that. And I'm going to stop sharing the remote controls. So I'll click past this next slide. I'm still screen sharing. That just shows our map. I'm actually in Iowa right now. Be very jealous. We just got 13 inches of snow, which is great if you ski in the mountains, but we don't do that in our cornfields. And I work for Cascade Geos with Melissa and for the other companies shown. But I first want to get to my intro, and I like that you called these guys international men of mystery. That's a lot nicer than I was going to say. And so while you were talking, Melissa, I did Google the right Stephen Lovering, and he is a landscape architect, and he's a North American technical rep of Citygreen, the world's leading supplier of sustainable urban landscape solutions, including structural soil cells, which we'll learn about today, along with tree root management systems, water harvesting, and aeration products. As a lifelong horticulture and design enthusiast, Steve has always had an interest in watching landscapes unfold, similar to what Melissa was talking about. And it's a somewhat natural path that would lead him to changing the world one streetscape at a time. Let's let that one soak in. That's a good one. I like that. He's helping trees thrive in urban areas where currently they are failing. And if I pause again, every single person on this webinar can imagine some urban trees they've seen that were less than thriving. So Steve's humble beginnings match the humble beginnings of Citygreen, which was founded in 2011. And along with a whole plethora of benefits and features that he'll describe to you for their solutions, one of their goals fits with what Melissa said also, and that is to be 100% sustainable. And they use 100% recycled materials. So Steve is the helm of design and product innovation in North America. And with that, Steve, I know you're in Canada and you're talking to people in Canada and the Pacific Northwest. So I'm going to hand over the controls to you. And there you go, Steve. If you click on your screen, you'll start driving. You got it.
Okay, there we go. Thank you, Bill. That's a fantastic introduction, and welcome everybody. I'm very excited to be talking with you today about the products that we sell and supply through Cascade Geosynthetics. So my name is Steve with Citygreen Urban Landscape Solutions, and there we go. And Citygreen are market leaders in soil cell technology. We've sold in over 20 countries worldwide. We are committed to being the world's most environmentally friendly soil cell solution. That's our thing, if you like. And we do manufacture products in Canada, USA, Australia, Europe, and Asia. We've got 200 plus projects in the USA in the last 3 years, and that's growing. These soil cell systems are really gaining in popularity for a few reasons, which I'll go into on the next few slides here. So we're trying to meet some urban environmental challenges with the soil cell products. The first challenge that we see is trees in community spaces. Now, this is where the concept of soil cells came from, because for the last 20, 30, 40 years, we've been planting trees into 4 foot by 4 foot square holes in our urban situations, in our sidewalks, in our plazas. What happens at that time is that after 2 or 3 years, the tree roots run out of space, they expand past the 4 foot by 4 foot area of soil, and they've got nothing but gravel and granular to take up nutrients for the growth. So we're now seeing a huge problem. Trees in Western USA are lasting typically no longer than 5 years, and then they're getting pulled out and replanted again, and we're not getting any of the aesthetic, shade, or health benefits that we're supposed to be getting. Another thing we're going to touch briefly on today is clean waterways. So fairly recently, we've actually been bringing our stormwater in from the streets through our catch basins underneath our sidewalks. This is good for 2 reasons. Firstly, it cleans the polluted stormwater, but secondly, it feeds the street trees. The third issue or challenge that we've come up against is mitigating urban heat islands. So obviously this is a massive problem in a lot of the United States. We're certainly seeing some cities get up to 35, 40 degrees Celsius, 95 over 100 Fahrenheit in the summer months. And what we're really trying to do here is to plant more trees into spaces where people are hanging out, walking around, using, to prevent a better environment for people to use and walk and shop, and livable streets, if you like. The fourth challenge that we're coming up against is meeting urban canopy targets. A lot of cities in the US have got very high canopy targets, and what's happening currently is lots and lots of developments going on in city centres, and of course they're pulling down trees, removing canopy. We're trying to change that curve and flatten the curve, if you like. We've heard that a few times recently, and actually get cities going in the right direction, planting more trees, but more importantly, planting trees that are going to actually grow and provide lots of shade aesthetics, provide the really good tree canopies that are going to be there for 50, 60, 70 years. So that's what we're trying to do here now. The first slide here might show you a little bit about how we're going to do that. So this is our soil cell product here. This is a Stratavault 30. And as you can see, this product sits underneath the sidewalk or underneath the road, and it's a structural product. It also has the void space within the modules, within the matrix, and this void space is for soil for the trees to use, so their roots can spread throughout the soil. Now, as mentioned before, we had a 4 foot by 4 foot square hole in the sidewalk. Now, with the use of our system, we're actually providing sometimes 500, sometimes 1,000 cubic feet of soil per tree within these systems, which means these trees are now going to grow from 3 to 5 years life expectancy to 50 to 70 years life expectancy. So it's a pretty simple concept. They are literally just, if you want to call them, plastic milk crates that have structural capability of supporting the sidewalk with a void space within them. Now I'll talk you through an installation. So this is out where I am. This is in British Columbia, and this was a project that the city installed themselves. As you can see, the image on the left, can everyone see my cursor, by the way?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. So these are 4 trees that were in a sidewalk application. These trees all died because, again, they didn't have any access to enough soil volume. So the city excavated these 4 trees out, and that's what you see on the right-hand side. So this is a tree trench. It's got around about 4 inches of compacted granular base on the bottom. And then what we're going to do now is start installing the soil cells into there. Image on the left, our base plates are down. That's the first thing that happens here. And then we add the actual product into the base plate, as you can see there. Okay, and we keep going. We have bridge connectors, and eventually, just taking its time here, guys, sorry. And eventually it becomes here what you see on the right hand side. So this is one complete layer of soil cells now, and the square holes are there. They're the area where the root ball of the tree will be going. Now the image on the left hand side, this is 2 layers completed now. So typically we go 2 high, which is 32 inches in height. And here you can see again the area where the root ball will be going. And the white product down the side here, obviously Cascade do sell this. This is Combigrid 3030. And this Combigrid 3030 product goes up the sides of the modules, wraps over top, and folds on top of the matrix here. Now we do that once this whole thing is full of soil, which is what's happening on the right hand side now. The soil is getting put into the matrix. Again, all of this soil is to be used by the tree roots when they start growing and using all of the space. Now the image on the left completes the Stratavault 30 installation. The top grates are in place now. And again, this square is where the tree will be going. And now what we've done is, because we've filled it with soil, we've folded the geotextile membrane over the top, and there's a 12-inch overlap here. And this is now ready for us to pour or to put the granular gravel layer on top of this and compact it. So that is just what we've done. Here's the granular layer on top, and this is again about 4 inches of granular compacted to 98%. And then the image on the right is the project now completed. We've only put 2 trees back into space because the canopy of these trees are going to far exceed the 4 that were there before, so we don't need as many trees. And just to go through the idea of why we use these soil cells again, is that this 4 foot by 4 foot tree grill here was the way that we used to plant trees into sidewalks. I say used to, we're still doing it now in some municipalities. But now instead of this, these tree roots have got all of this room here, all the way underneath this massive sidewalk. And this is all full of soil. So these trees can now expand through all of this, and that means that their canopy can grow and the tree can grow to live to be a fully mature tree, providing all of the shade, aesthetics and health benefits that we require it to. Okay, now I'm going to look at stormwater management quickly here as well. For those of you that are really getting started on the whole soil cells for trees concept, you can even potentially close your ears at this point. But this is a really interesting development that's been happening over the last few years. So we are actually sending our stormwater. So we've got lots of stormwater on this road here. Obviously it picks up lots of oils, metals and petroleum pollutants. And what we've been doing now for a few years is sending this stormwater into our catch basins. And the catch basin might be against the curb, or it might be in the center of the road. Doesn't matter, it just depends on the municipality. We've been sending that stormwater down into the catch basins and then eventually into our city systems, into our rivers, oceans, which is causing big problems. A, because the water is typically got some pollutants in it. So we're sending all this polluted water into our city systems and into our oceans and rivers. But also a lot of times the pressure that's going in because of the heavy rainfalls we're getting, we're actually blocking up the pipes or actually applying too much pressure, where we actually see manhole covers flying into the sky. I've seen it happen a couple of times up here in Canada certainly, and I'm sure it happens down there a lot in the States. So what we've developed is a way of sending the water through the catch basin into pipes which lead into our soil cell systems. And again, this is a win-win. There's 2 reasons why we do this. The water, the polluted stormwater that's coming through these pipes is A, feeding the trees, so the trees can keep getting water and keep growing, and B, the soil and the tree roots are actually cleaning all of the pollutants out of the stormwater. So it's a really fantastic natural way of cleaning this polluted stormwater. Now, if we want to, we can then send whatever stormwater is left into our system by the way of this overflow here. And now, of course, we have a completely clean water product. Now, we've actually got another system which I'm not going to talk to today, but it's a way of taking the silts and sediments out of the stormwater prior to it reaching this pipe. This will be a system that will be sold by Cascade Geosynthetics. So I don't have time, unfortunately, today to talk to that. If you've got any questions afterwards, you certainly can. But this is the concept. We can run all of this stormwater underneath our sidewalks into our soil, and the soil is going to clean all of that stormwater and produce nice, big, healthy urban street trees. Now, these soil cells are also used by engineers. Engineers are actually specifying this product now in a way to organize and compartmentalize pipes and utilities underground. So this particular system here that we see, this is a project in, this is in Seattle, this one. And as you can see here, the bottom row of soil cells is for stormwater. Okay, so the stormwater engineer wanted to know how much room they have for water, so we allocate that whole bottom row to stormwater. The second level up is all to compartmentalize and organize utilities, pipes, gas mains, that kind of thing. So that's all segmented away, and then the top area is all for soil for tree roots. So these are a really fantastic way of again organizing all of the space below the sidewalk. This is a project here in Edmonton, Alberta. No, I don't want to do that. This is a project which is a very early developer of these systems. And as you can see, a lot of this stormwater that falls on this road is going to empty into these gutters through these grates. I hope you can see them. And the grates would be connected to this space here, this is our system in here. This is a Stratavault product. So a lot of the water is going to be coming into this area. This area is all going to be filled with soil, and this is where the trees are planted, obviously, as well. This square hole here, as you can see, and again, these trees are going to become very large street trees over time because of the amount of soil and the water coming into them. This is a parking lot project. Very cool. We actually use this one as a case study. The trees in this parking lot, in the soil cells within the parking lot, are actually outgrowing the trees that are in the open planting areas with soil and grass. We don't often get case studies which are as close as these two together, so you can do a side-by-side comparison. But yeah, the form of these trees on the left are just doing so much better than the trees on the right. This is the same tree species planted at the same time, which is important to note. This is a project in Edmonton in Canada. Again, this is the largest stormwater project in North America. There's actually no trees involved in this one whatsoever, and maybe I won't touch on this in the interest of time. But this is just a way of getting a section of Stratavault units, filling it with soil, and then the stormwater engineers know exactly how much room they have to send this water in. They know the flow rates, they know the participation rates, so they need to know the area of collection, if you like. I'm not a stormwater engineer, you might have already picked that up, but that's the general idea of this. I'd love to talk more to this slide, but unfortunately we are a little restricted on time here. We can certainly answer that in any questions later. This is a project called, this was in Rossland, BC, and this is our best project to date. These trees were planted in 2013. As you can see, the growth of these trees is really incredible. And what we're doing in this particular project here is we're taking a lot of this stormwater from the roofs, we're running it down the gutters, down the side of the buildings, and underneath the sidewalk into the soil cell areas. So again, these trees are all getting fed the rainwater that's coming down. You'd never be able to grow a tree half the size of this unless you put it in lots and lots of soil, which is what our system does, obviously. And then Disney. We do all of Disney's work in California, in Florida. Really big advocates of our products, because again, they don't ever come in they don't close the parks to do maintenance. They want to know that their trees are going to grow really nicely. They want to know that they can keep all of the water that falls on the surfacing. And they also want to know that these tree roots are not going to start pulling up the surfacing, which is another benefit of using the soil cell. Las Vegas, I don't think there is a municipality in the USA that has a bigger requirement for our product than Las Vegas. We are selling product into Vegas, it's almost constantly at the moment. And again, our system can hold the water for the trees. We can also store the water in our product as well. Our product's the only one in the world that you can do both in. So we can actually store the product in our Stratavault 30, and then the city can then take that water and use it for watering of the trees, plants, or whatever else they need. Obviously, they need large trees as well, which provides shade for the people walking around Vegas. Now, this is very good in case there's any people from municipalities on this call today.
Steve, I accidentally took over controls. I was going to check a Q&A real quick. You can click on the screen and then you'll take back over.
Okay, thanks, Bill. So the tree on the right there, that's been planted for about 4 years. And that tree, when it went in, was worth $600. Now, after 4 years of growth, this tree is now worth $17,500. There's nothing in the urban realm that grows in value as much as trees. So the reason this tree has grown as it is because it's got our soil vault system below it. There's 1,000 cubic feet of soil around this root system. So that means that this tree can really get going. I don't anticipate trees growing quite as large as this in our vicinity, but certainly we'll get to 3/4 its size in 4 years. Trees do very, very well. The other way to do it is to look at trees like this on the left-hand side, which has been around for about 15 years. It hasn't got any soil volume. It's got a 4 foot by 4 foot hole here where the tree was planted. It's not providing any of the health, the shade, the aesthetic benefits that we need it to. And now, 15 years on, this tree is only worth $510. So you compare that to this. And when I talk about values, these are numbers that have come from municipalities that put ROI, or return on investment, values to their trees. And a lot of cities are doing that. I believe Portland, Oregon would be one of those that would do it as well. Okay, there we go. Okay, so this is how we measure these soil cell systems. We put them into large devices and we basically squash them until they bend or break or explode. This is a PSI, of course, is what we use in the US. In Canada, we use KPA, kilopascals. And our system is measured to about 51.62 PSI, which is twice as strong as our nearest competitor, which is nice. This also means that we can run vehicles across the top of the system. On a job site, we can get heavy machinery from one side of a job site to another, etc. And we also need less material on top of our product to reach H20 or H25 loading, which is what our system is required to. Working with utilities and pipes, we worked very hard on the patent of being able to do this, and this means that we can basically cut our system without compromising its strength. Really important when we're looking at underground infrastructure, pipes, utilities, that kind of thing. Our system, as mentioned earlier, is made with 100% recycled plastic. We saved over 1,000 tons of plastic from landfills and oceans last year alone. Again, I'd love to touch on some more of this information here because we're very proud of this, and we really like to put money into other objectives that serve this. Obviously LEED credits as well. If you have any LEED credits on your projects, we can help with that as well. 31 in total. Some of the benefits, I'll let maybe Melissa talk to this, but some of the benefits we're working with ourselves and Cascade Geosynthetics. Stock on hand in Portland, Oregon. Trained experts working for Cascade Geosynthetics and myself just north here. and constant education provided by the staff at Cascade and myself to landscape architects, but also landscape contractors, which is really, really important.
I want to jump in there with you, Steve, for the sake of time. We are going to stay on. The experts are going to stay on at the end of this. We'll wrap up right at an hour for those that have to leave, but we can dig deeper into the lunch and learn opportunities, the direct presentation opportunities with both of our speakers. And we'll stay for a Q&A. There's a question that popped up, but we're going to have to switch over to Mike here. So if you've got another slide or two here, Steve, that'd be perfect. And then I appreciate you sticking around to help answer questions.
Absolutely. This is my last slide, so this works fantastically well.
Nailed it.
Yeah. We offer a design service at Citygreen, obviously through Cascade, and we can design a lot of these soil cell products into your design. So whether you're a stormwater engineer, civil engineer, landscape architect, if you want to send your plans to us to show you where the soil cells will be put in, we can show you. We can also put them in, and this is a no-cost service that we offer. We've got landscape architects and landscape architect technologies working for our firm who do all of this work, and it's pretty special. We're getting some great feedback right now from all sorts of professionals. Thank you very much, team. That's great. Thanks for attending this, and yeah, absolutely, I'll stick around for questions.
Perfect. Excellent, Steve. Thank you very much. And I'm going to hand the controls over to our next speaker, but I want to thank Steve for an excellent presentation, and he usually fills an hour for us. Instead, we just asked him to share time today, and yet this next speaker, we asked him to share time as well. And I'm going to go ahead and give his bio as I advance to the next slide here. I should be in control. Oh, you do have another one for design services, Steve, and you got a couple more slides here. These are pretty good slides. We can come back to these, and Melissa will touch on the features and benefits here towards the end again. And there are more and more cities that are getting into these green programs. And a huge thanks to Steve Lovering, and he will stick around and be available. And we'll make this recorded presentation available online as well. And when we send out PDH certificates, we'll send out a link to a YouTube video for this. And we'll also send the contact information for Melissa and Steve and Mike. Speaking of Mike Callawert, the CEO and president of Trexiana, the manufacturer of Flex MSE, our next solution up today. And our geomodular construction specialist is Mike, and he works around the globe. He helps engineers, designers, and construction experts tackle traditional wall systems with a more sustainable and cost-effective approach. He'll go deeper into that. Before founding Trexiana, Mike worked in the fields of business consultation, technical engineering, and IT, helping corporations and startups achieve success. And now he trains and coordinates a brilliant global team, as I said, and they are gurus in vegetation. And I've worked with them on a number of presentations, and I've seen them answer questions live, which is what I've offered to all of you folks here today. Reach out to Melissa if you want to schedule a presentation at your office with your team. Rather than a webinar, we will do it as a meeting so everybody can have their mics turned on and ask questions live. FlexMSE is a unique soft building material that outperforms many hard armor products. I have about 3 more lines to say about it, but my voice is not nearly as cool as Mike Callawert. So with that, Mike, are you live?
I am.
All right, you're driving.
Bill. Sorry, I just have to finish blushing there at the introduction. Thanks to Bill, thanks to Melissa, and the team at Cascade for inviting us. Thank you, Stephen, for that interesting introduction to your system there. I definitely learned a bit more during the presentation, so I appreciate that. Like Bill said, my name is Mike Callewaert. I am the president and CEO of a company called Trexiana, and we manufacture this system. The presentation today, although it's abbreviated, I think you'll see that there's a ton of good information in here about the system. Typically what I say at the beginning of this is, this is meant to be a conversation, so please interrupt me and ask away. I love talking about this stuff. But like Bill said, we'll make sure that we leave time at the end for some of your great questions. Please do pop them into the Q&A, and we'll be sure to hang around and answer them. So Flex MSE is a vegetated wall system. We have the second category here, geomodular block and interlocking plate system. This is something we've worked out with folks like the Army Corps of Engineers or highways folks, where they perhaps can't single source a product. And so we needed to come up with a category for Flex MSE. So this describes it here. If you see this show up on a tender, they're talking about Flex MSE. The system is comprised of two main components, so our geotextile bag and our interlocking plate. It's really easy to look at this and go, you know, what's the big deal? It's a sandbag and a clip. It's actually closer to concrete than it is to a sandbag. So I'd like to talk about how it's similar to concrete first, and then we'll talk about how it's unique to all their systems in the market. So like concrete, you stack in an offsetting pattern, so you create that running bond up the wall. Our interlocking plate bridges the joint between two bags, so that when your subsequent row comes in, it centers over the plate and creates a mechanical connection. So you'll have hundreds or thousands of these individual connections throughout the wall, much in the same way that mortar or pinning might with other systems. If you want to make a Flex MSE wall green, you vegetate it. And so there are a number of ways to vegetate the system, whether it be grasses, trees, flowers. We get into that a bit as we go. If you want to make a concrete wall green, you paint it, and then you come back in 2 weeks and you paint it again. So if you're designing for public space, perhaps graffiti and that type of vandalism is an issue. With Flex MSE, if somebody wants to graffiti this, well, they'll just hedge clip it off and move on. So that's really where the similarities end. So let's talk a little bit about how Flex MSE is unique to all other systems in the market. So it can be installed anywhere from horizontal, so for channel cladding and outfalls, that sort of thing, all the way up to pure vertical as a living wall, so where you're attaching to an existing structure. We typically see ranges from 1 to 1, so 45 degrees, to 1 to 10, 85 degrees. The nice thing is it's the same two components regardless of your batter. So you're never getting that panic call from a job site saying, oh, I need a plate B with a bag C because the grading has changed. It's able to withstand almost unlimited differential settlement. So for the Pacific Northwest, where seismic concerns are there, Flex MSE is an ideal system. So over a 30-foot stretch, the system can settle up to 6 feet without failing. And we were able to determine this through FLAC analysis, which is earthquake analysis, where we were modeled for a project. So they modeled 30-foot sections of Flex MSE, of earthen berm, of basket, of block, that sort of thing, and then ran simulations from a 4.0 to a 9.0 with liquefaction. And we were able to withstand that entire range, and the maximum settlement was 6 feet. So this is really great for seismic zones, but it's also great for areas where you might have just soft soils or less than ideal soils. If you had a little bit of settlement with Flex MSE and you were satisfied it was stabilized, it's very easy to add a couple bags to the top of the wall, revegetate it, and move on. With a hard armor system, you're resetting the entire structure. System carries a 120-year design life, so these are permanent installations. The one caveat here is that it's vegetated within 1,000 hours of peak UV. So what does that mean? In a desert, maybe that's a year of exposure. In the Pacific Northwest, that's 3 to 5 years of exposure before you hit that mark. Our specification calls for the system to be vegetated within 6 months. So we want these things vegetated and looking great shortly after installation. System also carries a 75-year warranty, which is pretty unheard of in the wall-facing business. Qualifies for up to 21 LEED credits in 4 categories if you're building to LEED. So you can imagine these are very valuable credits. Uses 97% less greenhouse gas than concrete, 98.5% less than steel. So if your project requires you to reduce your carbon footprint or reduce greenhouse gas, Flex MSE should definitely be part of that conversation. We use 50% recycled content in our manufacturing, and the system is 100% recyclable. So even if you're using it for temporary works like temporary weirs or dams or even preload on the site, once the load cycle's over, you can recycle the bag and plate 100% and close the loop. System installs in 2/3 the time of a typical wall. On your first installation, you can get it down to about half the time by your second installation. So we all know time is money and money is money. We come in at 60% the cost of other systems. So typically when you're talking about something this versatile, this green, you expect to pay a bit of a premium. We actually go the other way where we're nearly half the cost. So let's talk about some of the applications for Flex MSE, the places you can use it. So for infrastructure, DOTs all over the world use Flex MSE in a variety of ways. So whether it's something like this, which is a road widening project, where you'll note that as they're constructing, there's no flagging or traffic control needed. You know, we're not using big machinery or specialized equipment here. As they're constructing, they're setting in things like the conduits for the lamp standards and all the services as normal. At the beginning of this project, there was an environmental monitor who took clippings of the native grasses and flowers here, and that was simply hydroseeded onto the face at the end of the build, and you're back to nature. So very easy to naturalize these sites as you go. This example here, this is a 30-foot tall 4-lane roadway built on the system. Pretty incredible. This is a very challenging site, old growth forest, fish-bearing stream here, about 6 feet of laydown on either side. The site was so tight, in fact, that the fellow that's hydroseeding here is actually hanging off a crane because they couldn't get equipment down that could lift them up high enough. This was originally specified as a concrete block wall. In order to go up 30 feet, they would have had to go down 6 feet to embed the toe. With Flex MSE, the maximum embedment we see is 12 inches. So we trench down 12 inches, 6 inches of clear crush for drainage, and then your first row of Flex MSE and you're back at grade. And then you can construct as normal. So very limited site disturbance. You're not hauling a lot of stuff away. You're not bringing a lot of stuff in. Other areas that we do a ton of work in, anywhere land meets water. So this is ideal. And we accomplish 3 major things for waterways folks. So one is we don't create a heat island, so we're not heating the water up. 2 is we don't leach anything ever. So nothing leaches from the bags, but we also create a barrier to prevent silt and sediment from leaching through into the waterway. And silt and sediment are the #1 pollutants for water in the world today. And then the third thing is we're able to restore the riparian zone very quickly here. So there was a failing timber crib wall here, reconstructed with the system, freshly hydroseeded here. And then you can see this is after a single growing season. And then the last photo here shows a pretty typical storm event for the site. So these flows can get in that up to 25 meters or 25 feet per second flows and lots of volume. So the system can withstand all of that. This little example here, so this is a creek where they would have mudslides come in and choke out this little creek. They reestablish the banks here. They have a little head wall with a walking path above it here. And then this bottom photo shows the same area 2 years post vegetation. So they planted ferns right into the top of the bags and the system has completely disappeared. You know, I like to say the nice thing about Flex MSE is in a short period of time it disappears. The bad thing is in a short period of time it disappears. So, you know, lots of photos, get people out early if you want to show off your work because the system will disappear into nature. And then another area where we kind of do a lot of work in as well is the erosion control. So whether it's a small site like this one where you have water event kind of took out the side of the ditch, created a shallow slope failure, but the compacted road base was protected. So what they were able to do is 4 workers from the city showed up and they were able to gravity stack Flex MSE here, hydroseed it the next day, and then they're back to nature. So very easy in and out of this job in about 4 hours. So it just shows the rapid installation of the system. This is one that was just recently finished in Auckland, New Zealand, where they had mudslides that kind of took out this whole section of road here. And so they rebuilt it, reestablished the roadway, and you can see some early growth there on the repair. And we have updated photos of this now where it's fully grown in, looking amazing and performing the function. So for erosion control, that rapid deployment and the ability to green up again is a great advantage. With slopes and walls, you know, this is one of our big areas, of course. This slope here is our tallest installation to date at right around 70 feet. This fellow you see in the middle here is also in the middle of the left-hand side there. So busy highway up top, water down below. They staged everything off-site and then barged it into the toe of this wall, and they were up 6 feet, in 6 feet until they reached the top of the slope. So incredible work here, and they were able to save the slope from further erosion. Other applications, this is our tallest pure MSE wall to date. This is getting close to 40 feet tall. Very tough to get a single shot of this site. This is in Kirkland, Washington. Tough to get a single shot of this site from the ground, so we have a few snaps from drone footage. This is the building site for a 3-story, 147 resident memory care home in Kirkland, Washington. Very challenging site. The engineer could not make block or basket work here, primarily because there's an enormous stormwater containment chamber in the backfill zone. So the grid runs he was trying to get, 25, 30 feet runs, he just wasn't able to achieve. And so one of the nice things about Flex MSE is that we follow the same conventions as other engineered systems where you have 60 to 80% of your overall height embedded every 2 feet of lift. So every 4th row of Flex MSE, you would have a grid run going back. Because Flex MSE is modular, what the engineer was able to do in this case was to go back every 2nd or every 3rd lift instead. And so he increased the number of intervals going back without having to increase the length, and was able to make the math work here. This site is now complete. There's a building within 5 feet of the front edge of this wall here, poured pad building. And during the build, they encountered 2 major events. One was a 3.4 magnitude earthquake, and then the other was they set 3 rainfall records in a row while they were constructing. The face of this wall was surveyed throughout the build, and there was 0 movement recorded. So very stable, survived the worst we could see, and now it's fully constructed. Landscaping is an area we do a ton of work in. So, you know, whether it's public space, parks, that sort of thing, you know, the ability to follow an organic line or go over rocks and stumps, that sort of thing, is a real advantage of Flex MSE for that aesthetic side of things. It doesn't impact the integrity of the system and looks great at the end. So things like HighEnd Residential, you know, these folks here had a very steep lot with a little tiny house at the top. They raised that, pulled their building footprint out about 3/4 of the lot. They parked their cars here. They've got some massive trees to hold up, and aesthetically, it's amazing. Other areas for LEED and green building, we talked a bit about that. These credits are available on the website, so you don't have to squint and try to read them, but pretty, you know, easy to accomplish things. Nothing you have to kind of look sideways at, you know, non-heat island effect, recycled content, that sort of thing. This is the first gold LEED certified building in Canada. This is EA Games, the video game guys. This is their headquarters. This wall here is 600 feet long, and the batter on this wall changes 6 times over the course of the wall. So they've got a soccer pitch and a tennis court and a basketball court and a park above this. So the top of wall could accommodate those changes while the bottom of wall was snapped to a line. This is live staked with Willows. So the process here is somebody with a little piece of rebar and a mallet creating a void between the bags, and then another person following behind filling those voids with the cuttings, splash a little water on it, and 45 days later, they're looking pretty good. These are now 20-foot tall willows. They look really great. They're very mature. But the nice thing about a willow is it has a rhizomatous root pattern, much like grasses. So it's actually adding further strength to the backfill zone and keeping the face looking good. Community and public spaces. So whether it's things like this is a 1.5 mile long sound barrier to prevent road noise from hitting the subdivision over here, to things like trail systems. So we do a ton of trail systems, whether it's a new cut fill type trail system or it's something like this where it was a repair. They had a failure here, able to reestablish the trail, re-engage all of their fencing, and match the vegetation that was there before. So really nice work there. We also do a lot of work with parks and golf courses. I like this one not just because this is at a golf course here. You have a cart path that was in jeopardy of slipping into the creek here, but I like this for the creek work because what they were able to do is rather than bring in a hard armor system, which would have flattened this surface, potentially created erosion downstream or heated up or sped up the water, they were able to match the original profile of the bank and then plant it with the native varieties. So the flow didn't change. It looks very natural, and they were able to protect this little cart path here. Entryways into parks. This is another golf course where, you know, this path sees tons of traffic from golf carts, but machinery and human traffic. Lots of foot traffic up here, but the parking lot, sorry, I'll go back one. The parking lot here, instead of making this a concrete face, they were able to use Flex MSE, vegetate this, matching the vegetation scheme that's on site. And so you have a great transition between the parking area and the facility. And this works great for municipal applications as well. I want to talk a little bit about filling and construction here, just so you kind of get an idea of what goes into it. So filling the units, you could fill them with a pile of dirt and a shovel. We also have plans for these filling jigs on our website that are free to download. You can fill 18 units at a time using a yard bucket. A 3-person crew can fill 600 units a day. And if you need 1,200 units a day, you build 2 more jigs, you add 2 more people. There's lots of bag filling machines in the sandbag industry. This one will fill 3,000 a day. It's automated, you've hopper fed, sews it, spits it out the back. So you know, you can be ready to go. For construction, we're the only vegetated system in the world that certifies installers. Our certification course is free, it's online. I would encourage you all to take a look at it. It definitely will help not only building beautiful walls, but helping you to bid Flex MSE projects in reality. Because once you understand what goes into the system, it's very easy to start to bid it. Construction is very simple. You just need a relatively flat base. First row of plates goes down, first row of bags center over those plates. Then you bridge the joint between each bag with another plate, offset by half a bag, center over the plate, rinse and repeat. So they're a very simple system. I've seen professional wall builders really screw this up because they overthink it. You know, it needs to be plumb and square and perfect and that sort of thing. Flex MSE is very forgiving and can work with all sorts of site conditions. So definitely would encourage you to check out the training. For vegetation, so, you know, hydroseed is still our most popular method for vegetation. We recommend using a flexible growth medium, something like a Flexterra, that sort of thing, which will allow adhesion to vertical surfaces for up to 18 months, we found. If you come in with straw or paper mulch, the overnight dew will typically just peel it off. You know, that stuff's great for horizontal surfaces, but not so much here. We also allow for 20% of the face to be cut for vegetation. So whether it's inverted T-cuts for larger plugs, dibber punctures for smaller plugs, you can be really creative with your planting. If you're installing near water, for instance, or you don't want to cut open your bags, you can also brush layer, where you're setting in your root wad in behind the face and running the plant out between the bags. So you have mature vegetation day one. This bottom photo kind of shows a bag that was cut off the wall, cut off the top of a wall after around 30 days. So a little clover growth, some grass growth, but the roots had already gone through the bag into the backfill zone and into the bags around it. And it's this deep root web penetration that once the vegetation is established, Flex MSE just takes on a life of its own. So you're not out there revegetating and maintaining it as much as you would with other systems. Speaking of maintenance, all the maintenance around the system is to do with the vegetation. So if you have a low tolerance for maintenance, you can be like these folks, where there's this is another golf course with a cart path above it. This needed to be engineered, but they didn't want to see rock or block or basket. They also didn't want to have to maintain this space. So what they did is they vegetated with the dwarf fescue, which only grows a few inches, provides a great coverage, and it looks great year round. So no maintenance here. If maintenance isn't an issue, you can be like these folks here who are, there's $50,000 worth of roses in the space. It's a very deliberate planting plan. They have a full-time gardener, that sort of thing. Yeah, the sky's the limit for what you can plant in here. And so that brings me to the end of the presentation. I was clipping through it there. I wanted to make sure I got all of this in, be respectful of everyone's time. So I appreciate you guys. Yeah, and Bill, I'll let you take back over and run a Q&A.
Well, absolutely. So that's perfect timing. Thank you for that. And we do have a couple of questions. So great job, Mike, following with Steve. You guys kept us on time and I greatly appreciate it. So if all the presenters will unmute themselves, we can answer them. So all three questions came from Forrest. Forrest, I wish we were giving away prizes because if we were, you'd win. The first question was for Stephen, and that was any concern with elevated salinity within soil from ice prevention or removal products?
Yeah, no concerns from that aspect at all. Soil from ice prevention or removal products.
So, you have a number of projects, that are in very cold weather climates. I mean, you live in Canada and you showed us some that were in Canada. So you've already proven yourself through some pretty harsh climates, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, we have a bunch of projects up in places like Winnipeg, Ontario, Alberta, where the ice has not been an issue at all. It doesn't affect our system a little bit. There are sometimes some concerns around the trees, but obviously hopefully the landscape architect is only specifying the trees that will work in that particular climate. So from our system point of view, the system actually gets stronger the colder it gets, and then once it meets and I'm sorry, I can't speak American at this particular time, but once it meets minus 25 Celsius,
right,
it starts to get weaker again, but certainly doesn't get weak to the point where it can't do what it's supposed to do.
Excellent. And the next question, thank you, Steve. The next question is for Mike from Forrest. How are trees stable in the Flex MSE?
Thank you for the question, Forrest. There are a couple different ways that we work with trees. Typically, we try to promote, if you're going to use trees with Flex MSE, that you're using trees with a rhizomatous root pattern. So willow, alder, dogwood, those sorts of varieties, they work very well with the system because their roots are very similar to grasses where you're not dealing with large roots. If you want to use something that is a taproot variety, like a cedar or a pine, that sort of thing, there are different approaches. So we would build a tree well instead, and we would just make sure that they were managed. So we have lots of folks that use cedars in our walls, but they're managed. So the height is limited, so the root ball stays in a manageable size and that sort of thing. So we're happy to work through if you have something in mind that you want to try to use it for a tree variety. We're happy to work with you on that and just to see the best approach. But those are typically the ways we deal with it.
Excellent. So stay on there, Mike. Curtis asks, and Curtis was one of our first attendees. I'm proud of him for hanging in there. And folks, just a reminder, we're going through some questions now, but if we come up against that hard hour, or even right now, if you have to jump off of here, we just give a hearty thanks to Steve and Mike, and Melissa and I are very grateful for them. I'll come back here in a minute after this next question and have Melissa do a soft closing, and then we'll stay on for anybody that wants to go a little longer. So continuing with that question from Curtis, Mike, what type of soil or fill goes in the bag? And I know you touched on it, and Curtis, yeah. I get it. I've seen this presentation 7 times and I love the questions.
Yeah, I love it too. And I don't think I talked about the specific blend of material that goes into the bag. So thank you for that question. There's a blend of 66% sand and 34% compost that go into the fill material. It's mixed by volume, and we keep it 8% fines or lower. So a nice clean sand, good compost, blended by volume, is the structural vegetative blend that goes into our bags.
That's awesome. Melissa, as we continue to jump on these questions, do you want to give a little bit of a soft close before some people have to jump off at the hour?
Absolutely, yes. Thank you, Bill, and great job. Steve and Mike, you guys are as awesome as I was hoping you were going to be. And I will just encourage anyone that's on the call, if they want to talk about budget, some material pricing for either of these systems, or any other geosynthetic or erosion control product. Our website is here. Bill's got on the screen, cascadegeos.com. And we just see every solution through the prism of geosynthetic, and there's nothing we love to talk about more. So anyone feel free to email us or call us, check our website, hit us up if we can provide any follow-up in that regard.
I have a huge smile on my face because you're awesome at what you do, Melissa. I really regret that I didn't go in here and make sure we could turn the camera on so people could see that they do recognize you. I'm sure that most people on here either know you by face or by name, and if they don't, well, they need to contact you and set up a meeting. And Brian Cole for Flex MSE product. I didn't recall if you provide the engineering, design, and stamp the drawings.
Thank you for that question. That's a great question, and actually very timely. We've just launched a service on our website where you can go in and enter in your project specifics and your soil properties, some of the geometry, that sort of thing. And within a couple of hours, we can provide a full preliminary design package, which then can be stamped or can be adopted into your existing plans, or can be simply used as a check. If you have a Flex MSE design, we have engineers who are going through our system just to check that their calculations are correct. And that's something I would invite everyone on the call, if you're interested, to visit our technical library. You can send us a quick email. You can send it to info@flexmse.com, and we'll get you access to the secure area of the site, which has our full CAD library, all of our technical and testing documentation, as well as that sheet that I mentioned, which will provide full preliminary designs for you. Hopefully that answered the question.
There's that flexmsc.com up on the screen. I think that was a good answer. Now, you said they could be stamped. So I think he's asking specifically, do you have a PE on staff that stamps them, or do you still count on them to stamp their own drawings as a project engineer?
Great. Thanks for touching on that. So we can, we're big fans of shopping where we eat. So wherever your project takes you, we have engineer who's familiar with the system and can stamp locally and provide the inspections and that sort of thing. You can understand that we distribute globally. So, not every engineer can stamp everywhere on the globe. So we like to partner with local engineers and that sort of thing. So if you require a fully stamped package, we can provide that, absolutely. And that's what we typically do is through the website is provide that preliminary section, and then if you have an engineer of note already, it's enough for them to be able to stamp it.
Thank you. I regret talking over you a little bit. It's because I'm from the Midwest and we just don't have people skills. Just kidding. It's because I'm excited that Melissa can also offer recommendations there. So Melissa knows the Pacific Northwest very well, and she's very good friends with a lot of engineers and landscape architects. So she'll be in that conversation as well, as we are distributors there for Flex MSE. So thank you, Brian. And see, ZGF Architects, and I'm not sure who the person is, asked Stephen, any ballpark on average cost per street tree in Stratavault or Stratacell with the extent of cells you showed today? And I think that's a tough one because we're the distributor and we actually provide the direct quoting, but how would you like us to answer that, Steve? And Melissa, you can participate as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So typically the product for just products, not installation, anywhere from $250 to 500 cubic feet per tree is typically what we're seeing in your region. And for that sort of area of soil for trees, which again is going to get up to the sort of 30 to 50 years is the number we put on that. But you'd be looking at around about $2,000 to $4,000 in product. So that's going to be cost of the product through Cascade Geosynthetics. Now, installation, it does depend on which region you're in, the municipality. If contractors in that region have done lots and lots of installs before, then they're going to be very efficient, very quick. They're going to know the systems, and they're going to price you very competitively, and it's going to be good. You're going to be looking at around about probably $4,000 to $6,000, but maybe a bit more than that. $4,000 to $7,000 per tree installed with the product, everything done, sidewalk, place on top. So that's where you're going to be. I am seeing in other parts of the states numbers go as high as $8,000, $9,000 per tree, but again, with our system, because it's so quick and easy, we are bringing that number down, I would say, weekly.
My tongue is bleeding because I bit it really hard when I started reading that question, because I have a rule on not talking price on webinars, only because I think a lot gets lost in translation. So I made the rookie mistake of just going ahead and reading it out loud, but ZGF, you got a good one in there on me. I asked ZGF Architects to please contact Melissa and have her host a Zoom meeting, which would be like a lunch and learn, virtual lunch and learn. And she can invite Steve to that. In fact, she could invite Mike to that. But I think you could dig a little deeper, pun intended, with the soil cells. And Steve, I'm going to put you on the spot for, I noticed a couple of your slides, I wrote a note, say Stratacell, and then we also say Stratavault. Could you explain quickly what the difference would be in those terms for us?
Yeah, absolutely. Stratavault is our latest system. It's been on the market now for between 4 to 5 years. The Stratacell is our older system. It's a little smaller. So when we've got constraints like sidewalks, buildings, parking garages underground, we tend to use the Stratacell in those applications and Stratavault for pretty much everything else.
And I think to answer my own question, the reason some of those slides say Stratacell is those are some mature projects that show some really awesome trees that had Stratacell underground, even though now for our promotional material, we primarily say Stratavault.
That's correct, Bill. And just to touch on that costing question again there, once the municipality realizes the benefit and advantages of having large trees in their sidewalks, our system is a huge cost saver, because what we're not doing anymore is, with some of the older trees that are planted into sidewalks with 4 foot by 4 foot squares, a lot of the tree roots are really trying to get out of that 4 foot by 4 foot space, and they're pulling up sidewalks, or they're just simply dying. Now, to replace some of these sidewalks is very, very expensive. And what we figured out is that after 7 years of using our system, we're actually already ahead of the game. So if we're thinking of growing these trees for 50, 60, 70 years, we could be 10 times less expensive than going the traditional route. And of course, we've got these massive street trees, which grow in value. The return on investment goes up from $600 to $17,500 in a built environment. But also the property value and the value of those residences, the shops, the restaurants, all of the values of all of those things go up as well. So when we put it back to cost, we've got some huge cost savings.
Hey, that's awesome. And I love how confident you answered that. And ZGF Architects told me not to be too hard on myself, that those prices seem in the right range. So good job out of ZGF and Steve for knowing what they're talking about. As an engineer, I just balk at that all the time. And I like to have Melissa talk price, so I don't have to. And thank yous from Michael Walton and Brian Cole. And I love when people say thank you. It shows everybody's engaged and answered live there. And I'll get to another one. By the way, I want to mention something. You touched on two things. One, Steve, you mentioned the benefit of the huge cost saving. I've become friends with some people that work at cities pretty high up across the US, and liability is a huge concern. So every time they have to go back into public right-of-way or any kind of a public space and excavate and create holes, they really worry about the liability of that being open all day, all night, possibly, and someone falling in it or driving in it or looking on their phone and falling in it. So the more often that they can create 50-year projects, long-term lifetime projects, the better off they are, because even though a few $100s here and there might not seem like much, as soon as somebody gets hurt on public property because there's an excavation every 3 or 4 years to replace a tree, that's a huge cost, a huge liability. The other one was, upheaval. there are actually companies trying to make products that you can put under your sidewalk when you build a sidewalk right next to a tree to try to prevent upheaval. And I can tell you from my experience, 100% don't work. So instead of trying to put a special type of a product underneath the sidewalk, expecting the tree roots to come up into it, I think soil cells, preventing those roots from wanting to come up to the surface, is absolutely the right approach. So great job. Mike, Flex MSE project in Kirkland, Washington. Are you willing to share where that project is located?
No.
Okay. Sorry, Forrest.
I'm just kidding. It's it's the Jefferson House Memory Care Facility. It's right by the Evergreen Hospital, I believe it's there in Kirkland, Washington. So right by the main hospital there. You can't miss it. It's the big vegetated, beautiful thing on the hill.
Is there part of that can be seen without trespassing?
Oh yeah, you can see it from the street. You can. It's definitely part of the. It's definitely part of the public area there. So yeah, by all means, check it out.
Melissa, would you please create some kind of a gold star system or like a superstar system or a lunch certificate for Forrest Jammer? He is doing my job for me. He's coming up with some great questions and keeping us moving.
Awesome. Yes, we'll do.
Do you know Forrest yet?
No.
Oh, well, meet Forrest Jammer. He's excellent. Forrest, awesome. Meet Melissa. So Forrest, the next question is also for Mike. Flex MSE and irrigation, what do you recommend?
Yeah, another great question. I mean, this is where we typically part ways with traditional wall systems, where if you're building with other hard armor systems, you're trying to get the water as far away as you can. With Flex MSE, we don't use any drainage. The system is free draining, so we like that groundwater kind of perking through and feeding the root system. But if you're in an arid climate, or you have a choice, a vegetation selection that requires irrigation, that sort of thing, you can irrigate the wall quite easily. So you can use drip line, or you can use a spray head. And we have CADs on the back end of our website, which show both of those approaches. And so you can just basically, the way the wall is stacked, there's a beautiful little notch between the rows where drip line irrigation can just sit in there on the outside of the face and provide all of that irrigation. You know, everybody thinks the Pacific Northwest is wet all the time, but we all know we definitely see some drought and some dry periods. So having that supplemental irrigation is a big help. So thanks for the question.
And Corey says, thanks everyone, and probably has to jump off of here. Thank you, Corey Pelfrey. And Corinne Schmidt has a couple of questions for us. With Flex MSE wall installations in cut slopes with existing mature trees, how much over excavation is required for installing tiebacks?
So it depends on the wall height. So if these are smaller walls and slopes, sometimes you can get away with anything up to 2 feet in height. Gravity stack is typically fine. Anything up to 4 feet, you can use what we call tieback. So where every second row, every second bag is turned perpendicular to the face, so it extends into that backfill zone. So ultimately, you're only excavating a very small area. If you require geogrid, so for taller walls, anything above that 4 feet or anything with loading, then that's really up to the engineer as far as the embedment depth goes, and it's not going to change with Flex MSE over other systems. We follow the same conventions that other systems do for MSE design. So, like I said, it's typically 60 to 80% of your overall height embedded in the backfill zone. One of the great advantages of the system is that in addition to typical geogrid reinforcement in tiebacks, is that we can also use earth anchoring or rock anchoring. And with those, you don't need to excavate for those systems. You're basically drilling pilot holes and setting in either a grouted Dewey dag for rock or a duckbill style anchor for soil. And we have CADs on the back end of our site again that address both of those methods. And so quite often we can reinforce taller walls without having to excavate at all, but it's just based on the specific site. So feel free to reach out if you have something in mind. We're happy to walk through it and help you decide the best way forward.
Excellent. Thanks, Mike. Hey, Steve, are you still with us?
Excuse me?
I'm glad you said.
I'm
I'm glad you said that you and Mike already know each other, because you guys are like a dream team. Corrine has one more question for both of you. Do you have any installed projects in various regions, say the Pacific Northwest for her case, that already include both Flex MSE and Stratavault?
I'll go first, shall I, Mike, on this one? Yeah, we do a ton of work in the Pacific Northwest. My region is, in particular, it's Washington and, of course, Western Canada. And we've done a ton of jobs in Vancouver, in Seattle. Seattle was my biggest market last year. And I believe, I'll have to go back and check, but I believe that we've done a few projects in Portland as well. It's really, for us, it's all about the municipalities and how far along they are progressed with the whole trees in urban realms. Portland are getting there, and Seattle are definitely there already. So yeah, lots and lots. I can definitely provide projects for you, no problem, Corrine.
And Mike?
Yeah, Corrine, thank you for the question again. So there's a couple of ways to kind of learn about the stuff we're doing in the Pacific Northwest. One is by visiting our website. Under resources on the homepage there, you'll find a link to our photo gallery. And the photo gallery is excellent because it can be sorted by region or by project type. So this is something we've just launched. So not all of our photos are in there. We have roughly 17,000 examples projects. But if you go in there, you can find Washington is listed there, and it'll show you a few of the projects we've done there. The other place I would encourage you to check out is our Instagram account. I promise you guys, it's not me in bikinis or food I'm eating. It's actually beautiful walls from around the world. And there's a lot from the Pacific Northwest in there. But we're also happy to provide you, other examples and addresses and that sort of thing. If you want to go check these out live and in person, feel free to reach out, and yeah, we're happy to assist with that. But yeah, the website is a great resource for that. Just to see some of the different types of projects we've done. We have roughly 8,000 different projects worldwide. It's pretty awesome.
Mike, I love your Instagram feed. It's just Flex MSE is the address, and there's always interesting projects on there. And I think that that page is a lot better since you removed all your bikini pictures.
I like the bikini pictures personally.
It was at your request. So,
Mute,
I mean,
how do I mute all? How do I put an end to this?
Do it quick. Do it quick.
So
I should mention too, we've got some really cool case study videos on our website as well for anyone interested in soil cell technology. We've got a couple of really nice projects on there from Australia, from the Pacific Northwest. Go and have a look at them as well. They're only 3 to 5 minutes in length, but they really talk you through why the client used the system, the outcomes afterwards. It's got some cool videos and pictures of the trees and etc. So I just wanted to add that to Mike's comments as well about the website thing.
Nice.
So Steve, I was waiting for that from you. Do you see what's on the screen now? I think I moved back to your final slide.
I do, my friend.
I'm a parent. I knew that when Mike got his chance to plug his website, Steve was going to be just sitting in his chair, reaching his hand up high, saying, "My turn. It's my turn."
Bill, could you go back to my website for a minute?
Nice try, Mike. So just to be clear, Mike, yours is citygreen.com, correct?
Well, Mike's isn't, but mine is.
Steve. I said Steve. I said
Steve.
Okay. Yeah, I knew Mike's was flexmse.com. We had it on there for 2 days. But so I wanted to make sure that it's citygreen.com. And I will tell you, I don't use Instagram for work stuff, except the only one I have that's work related is the FlexMSE account, and they are beautiful pictures. But I do a lot of LinkedIn activity, and there are some great Citygreen projects on there here recently, Steve, that I don't know if Ben or who put them on there. You're doing some incredible work. I saw something out of Houston, and I think a lot of other cities are going to start following the examples of these bigger cities that both of you gentlemen have already worked in. Melissa, for example, we still have a few attendees on here. I'm sure that you have some plans to go see some of the cities in your area. I don't know if you know Rex Redmond yet. He was the very first person that got on here. So when you're going to see all those cities, Melissa, I hope you go see Rex Redmond because he put in more time on this than anybody but me.
Awesome. Will do.
All right. Well, that's it for our Q&A questions. Melissa, you get the last word here, I think.
I just want to thank everyone for their time. You guys, we have all been sitting through way too many webinars in this strange world that is 2021, but this has been a really fun one, and great enthusiasm, great energy, and let's just keep moving forward, creating beautiful urban environments.
Awesome. And so, Melissa, they're going to hear from Madeline, our marketing department, and she's going to send out a Survey Monkey after this. People, please send us your name, your company name, your email address. Make sure that's right, and we'll send you the PDH certificate. We will also send you the written answers to all the questions from today. And with that Survey Monkey, you'll have the chance to ask some more questions. And any additional questions, we'll also have our team of experts answer those. So all attendees will get a PDH certificate and all of the answers to all the questions. And they'll also have Melissa's contact information as well as Steve's and Mike's so they can set up some follow-up meetings.
Great job. Thanks, Bill.
Take care. Thanks, Forest Jammer.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, guys. Take care. Thanks a lot.
Bye-bye.